call to worship today is from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. This is the season of anticipation, of expecting, of hoping, of wanting. This is the time of expecting the arrival of something or someone. We are waiting. This is the time of living in darkness, in the hues of unknowing, of being quiet, of reflecting on a year almost past, waiting for a new beginning, for a closing or an end. This is the time for digesting the lessons of days gone past, anticipating the future for which we are waiting. Waiting for a world which can know justice, waiting for a lasting peace, waiting for the bridge to span the divides which separate us, waiting for a promise or a hope. For all this, for all of this, we are waiting.
The flaming chalice is a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith. Please join me in reciting the lighting words. We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Good morning, and welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. Today is November 27th, 2022 already, and I am Melinda Lee, a member of our worship associate team. Today is the first Sunday of Advent in the Christian calendar, and in the music calendar, it is the birth date of Jimi Hendrix, the renowned electric guitarist. Born in Seattle, Washington, in 1942, of Afro-American and Irish heritage, it was remembered in grade school he used a plain broom handle as a guitar until a teacher noticed and mentioned this to his family. As a youngster, his very first guitar was an old ukulele with one string found in the garbage of a house his father and he were cleaning. It is wonderful to see you all, and also to know that more people are joining us through the live streaming and later in the week. If you are here in the sanctuary for the first or second time, would you be willing to raise your hand so we can give a special welcome to you? Welcome, welcome, there, over there. Our welcome ambassadors are Deborah Raggioni. And Deborah, could you just raise your hand wherever you are? There, right behind. And Ken Swearingen. And all of us would be happy to meet you, but those folks could maybe answer any questions that you have about us. And during this time of COVID infections, masking is encouraged but not required. Unitarian Universalists come from many traditions and backgrounds, and we welcome all who share our concern for building a local and world community based on compassion, justice, respect, and care for the environment, and who are looking for meaning in their lives. As a part of this concern, we acknowledge that the land on which we enjoy and on which our buildings are located, and where the trees have shed their leaves and the flowers have faded and the autumn frosts are layering the ground, this is still the unceded territory of the Western Abnaki peoples. We strive to fulfill our responsibility to them and act as good neighbors and stewards of this land. Just a few announcements. Our coffee hour will be held downstairs after the service, and please join us. And one more, next Saturday, which is December 3rd, from 9 to 12, there will be a workshop held both on Zoom and here in this building called Beyond Categorical Thinking. And it's led by a member of the UU Association named Keith Cron. And this event is special because it's going to lead us to examine our biases, both unconscious and conscious, that we might have in our efforts to invite a new minister to join our congregation. And it'll also address how can we be a truly radically welcoming society. So please sign up, and I believe that's online, the sign up. So we are about to begin, and we're so glad you're here today. Come, welcome. It is good to worship together.
And it is good to sing together as well. The hymn today, should you want to use the hymnals, is number 346 in your gray hymnals in front of you, or the words will be up here. And it's a song that a bunch of you already know. Come sing a song with me. Please rise in spirit or in body. I love that song. Thank you. So I haven't said hello yet. I'm the Reverend Tricia Hart, and I'm the Senior Developmental Minister of this congregation, and it is lovely to be here and lovely to be joined by those who are watching too. And because Erica actually has the day off today, I get to do a reflection for all ages. So if there are children or people who are feeling childlike today who would like to come forward, we'd love to have you do that. Kind of gather right here. Thank you, Margot. Let me see if I can do this. I'll sprout a third hand. So, what is this? Do you know what this is? It is a singing bowl. That is exactly right. It's a singing bowl. Sorry, what? What's it for? Why do we ring it at the beginning of the service, do you think? 3 times. You're going to get to answer 2 in a minute so you can think about your answers. But these, you get to answer first. Why do you think we do it? What's it for? Yeah. It can help you, it's peaceful. It can help you into a, what kind of mindset? A pleasant mindset. Oh, jeepers. We need pleasant mindsets. Maybe we need a lot more singing bowls, or I do anyway in my life. Right. What happens, I'm not asking for the, the science of it, but what is that happens when we ring this chime? What happens to any of you? What's it do? Yeah.
Help me put the outside. Focus in here.
To focus in here, to just be present. Yes. What? Any other thoughts about what it does? Yes. Calmness. It makes us feel a little bit calm, which is interesting because it can be kind of jarring. One of the things that the worship associates and we have noticed is that every time you ring it is not necessarily like every other time you've rung it. And that's interesting too. Yes. What, Mark?
I like to think that even though I can't hear them anymore, the vibrations are still going out.
Great. Good. So cool. So let's try something. See if you can listen to the very end. Put your hand up when you can't hear it anymore, you people with good ears. So singing bowls are sensitive, especially when we play them that way and try to make the whole thing vibrate in a different way. And I was practicing this morning and made a nice, strong, steady sound, but in front of all of you, not so much, because the bowl and I were, having a conversation. The thing about a singing bowl, I find, is that it encourages us, it calls us into peacefulness and a pleasant mindset and a place where we're concentrating here. And it also calls us to listen, to pay attention as the sound goes away. And that kind of attention, that kind of, I'm going to stay with this until there's nothing left to distract me, to listen to hear. I'm going to stay with it. And on the other side of that, in that silence, is something different. It isn't necessarily, at least not for me, it isn't necessarily peaceful all the time, but it is attentive. It is a place where you're listening and paying attention and noticing in all the ways that you might notice. For some of us, that's more visual than it is sound-wise. Suddenly you can find yourself when you stop. You know, I'm not sure that I have ever looked from here out that particular window, especially when the leaves are gone, to notice what part of the sky, what part of the buildings you can see. Some of us notice things because we're looking at them. Some of us pay attention because of sounds or lack of sounds. Some of us, what else makes us pay attention in a way that maybe we don't normally do? When you sketch something, oh, thank you for saying that. So when you're sketching, when you're drawing, you're paying attention. Oh, my goodness, are you related? At home, what? You sketched a moth? Really? Did it hold still long enough for you to sketch it? Oh, it was a picture, but still, yeah, that's good. Okay, great. What other touch? Yes, touch can focus us. It, again, can be jarring, and it can be comforting, and it can be all kinds of things. What about smell? I don't know about the rest of you. I'm not even sure I like turkey that much anymore, but I sure like the smell of turkey roasting in my house, and it reminds me of other times in my life when people have gathered and Thanksgiving has happened. Yep? Sometimes you can smell Christmas? Yeah, and what does Christmas smell like? What does Christmas smell like? I'm going to ask them. What does Christmas smell like? Yep, Kate?
Pine needles.
Pine needles, it does. It absolutely does. What else does Christmas smell like? Smell? Smoke? Snow. It smells like snow. And isn't that a weird thing that snow actually has a smell? That you can walk out and you can take a breath and say, I think snow is going to happen. Yeah, right. Thank you. Yes. What else does Christmas smell like for anybody? Candy canes. Candy canes. Yeah. Good. I was going to say cookies. Yes. What? Cinnamon. Yes. Yes. And then, of course, there are the people who don't celebrate Christmas and who have other things that they notice and see and listen for. What about people for whom solstice is the time that you celebrate? Is there a smell or a sight that brings that for you? Lights, yes. And there's plenty of darkness to put lights in these days, yes. And Hanukkah. Anybody celebrating Hanukkah? So what's a...
Latkes. You're making latkes.
Latkes. Oh my gosh, they smell so fabulous when you're cooking them. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I hadn't thought about that. Yes. So this season, this 4 weeks, this is, as Melinda said, this is an old Christian season called Advent. And it lasts for a while. It lasts for 4 weeks. And when I was a kid, Advent meant one thing. What does it mean? It meant a calendar. You're so right. It meant a calendar, and every single day of Advent, you get to open the doors, and then finally there's the last one, and you get to fight with your siblings about who gets to open what and things like that, yes. And in some ways, that's actually a fine tool for Advent, which is a time of waiting and a time of preparing. And it can be kind of frantic, at least for me. Does anyone else notice a kind of franticness? Maybe you're all much more spiritually evolved than I. But there's a tension there between the franticness of the getting ready and the silence and the peacefulness of getting ready. And that tension sometimes can stay with us all day and all night, day after day after day, and we're going back and forth and back and forth. So I want to leave you today with the idea that of Advent as a time when, for who knows what reason, maybe it's because of a sound that ends, maybe it's because of a smell of snow, maybe it's who knows what it is, a bit of music, we didn't talk about that. You're invited, we are all invited to just stop, even if it's just for a few seconds, or possibly as long as a whole minute. You could practice the staying still. I noticed today, as I was on my way here in my completely prepared, non-frantic, peaceful way, waiting for a light, I noticed a tree that I pass every single time I drive from my house here. And I don't think I have ever before today seen that tree. And it's quite lovely. So I'm going to look for it the next time I pass, which will be soon. An invitation to just stop. When you stop, look, or feel, or smell, or listen. Yes. On Church Street? On top of the ledge? Yeah, and what did you see? What did you see when you were up there? Pine needles. What a wonderful thing to see. That's great. Thank you. So just notice. And then you get to tell other people when you notice something. And that's a good thing too. All right, it's fine. It's time for the children to go off with Margot and with Penny. You are going to go, that's great. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you.
As we let the silence settle into us, let us deepen together into a time of meditation, breathing in the breath of peace and breathing out a breath of love for the world and ourselves, and come into a place of holy listening. First, I will read the joys and sorrows of our community, and then we'll hold a moment of silence. And during the music that follows, you are welcome to come up and lay a stone on the table. Choose one and lay one for a memory or a reflection or a joy, sorrow you might have. And I have shuffled my papers around, so I'll have to ad-lib here. Just fine. So the joys and sorrows of our community are a joy that the swim meet for the Special Olympics is going hopefully to be held, and this is a joy from Kate Bovey, but she also has the concern that there may not be another team to have a competition against. So, and then a sorrow for the ongoing violence in our world and in our country with guns. When will there be an answer to this? And also there's a joy that it's been 2 months that we've had the Sunday morning breakfast outside before our service begins. And the joy is also that more and more people are becoming involved in this. So, Reverend Tricia.
One more sorrow that has become a joy. I got a phone call on Thursday afternoon as we were getting ready for Thanksgiving, and I was concerned when I saw that it was a call from Susie Haas. And she was calling to say that Brian, Susie's husband, who was also a beloved and devoted member of this congregation, was in the hospital, that he had had a stroke the night before. A pretty serious one. So Susie and I talked, and I reminded her of what she already knew, which is that the congregation was and is always holding them through these challenging days. And how that would go on for a while, and that she and I would talk and we'd figure out how to share the news as Brian's condition became clearer. I talked to her again on Friday, and then yesterday afternoon as I was getting ready to call Susie, the phone rang, my cell phone rang, and it was Brian. Brian was calling me. That was pretty wonderful. His recovery, according to the doctors, has been nothing short of miraculous. And he still has a long way to go, but they actually went home last night. So it is my job to tell you this news and to tell you that cards and emails and texts are all welcome for Brian and Susie. Probably waiting a bit before calling or showing up at the door would be a good thing. But Brian wanted me to tell you that the story of sorrow has become one of joy. He is so grateful for everything, and grateful especially for the good care that he's received at the hospital. He said that that the doctors and the nurses that have helped them and supported them have been a parade of saints and angels. So our job now is to be grateful for that and to be aware that such life-saving and affirming health care is what all people deserve, of course. So a joy of gratitude for Brian and Susie and for all of you who make this congregation a place of love and support and joy.
May these joys and sorrows mentioned here today be the joys and sorrows of all of us, reminding us of our shared humanity. Please join me in a moment of silence.
We take up an offering every single week to remember that this congregation exists in the world because of the faith and the confidence and the love and hope and support of its members and friends. And also because it's important to share the bounty of this congregation with the wider world. So today is the last Sunday in November, and the final collection that we're making for an organization called Vet the Vote, a national campaign which has been recruiting veterans and military family members as the next generation of poll workers, since democracy matters and our poll workers matter. So your gifts, however you make them, in a minute you can come up and put a gift in the basket if you want. You can give online. The directions will be on the screen. You can mail in a check later. It's all good. Would you join one another, please, in speaking the words of dedication for this morning's offering? With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
The reading this morning is a story from Hasidic Judaism. This is a form of Judaism that, among other things, is infused with joy in its practice. And it traces its origin to a spiritual guide and healer known as the Baal Shem Tov. And I know there are people here that know more about Jewish history than I do. So can anyone tell me where the Baal Shem Tov is from? Does anyone know? Somewhere in Eastern Europe, that's very much in the news right now. Ukraine. He's from Western Ukraine. And the Hasidic people still go and have festivals there in Ukraine. They had one in September in a village called Uman. So the devotion goes on. The stories are often in the form of the rabbis and the students talking to each other. So So once there were students, devout and faithful, who went to their rabbi with a complaint. There is so much evil in the world, they said. Why does God allow it? And why are we not doing more to combat it? The rabbi thought for a moment. Then he told the students to go and get some brooms and take them down in the cellar where it was very dark. And when you were there in the darkness, he told them, take your brooms and sweep the darkness away. Students were puzzled, but they did as the rabbi instructed. They took the brooms in the cellar and they swept and swept. And when the darkness did not lift, they went back to the rabbi and told him what happened. The rabbi thought for a moment. Go outside then and find some sticks, he replied. Good, stout sticks. And when you have them, take them back to the cellar and beat at the darkness with all your might. Once again, they did as they were told. And again, the darkness did not recede in the least. They returned for more instructions. The rabbi thought for a moment. Go back to the cellar, the rabbi said, but this time leave the brooms and sticks aside. Shout at the darkness and curse it with all your strength. Order it to go away. So the students tried. They shouted and cursed and ordered the cellar's darkness to disperse, but to no avail. Finally, discouraged, confused, and impatient, the students returned to their teacher. The rabbi said one more thing. Go back in the cellar, and this time take a single candle with you and a match. So they did, and the darkness was conquered by that one small flame.
So the lesson that Melinda just shared is a very simple story. The students, the people, are distressed about the cruelty and corruption of the world, so they ask their rabbi, their teacher, what they should do to set things right. And the rabbi helps the students, helps all of us to remember that fighting and force are never as effective as faith. Faith that the world doesn't have to be this way. Faith and the actions that people take because of it. Evil, hatred, ignorance, even fear can be overcome, the story teaches, by the small beacon that is the goodness in one's own heart and mind and actions. Even one person's small flame can be enough to inspire someone else, and small flames can join together to light the world. This story is a good companion, I think, to the traditional Hanukkah story. Hanukkah's not coming up for a few more weeks now, but the Hanukkah story of Judah the Maccabee and his sons and other fighters who defeated the terrible army of the terrible Assyrian general Antiochus. Antiochus and his men were an occupying army. They defiled the temple and the sacred rituals of the Jewish people over many, many years. And after the Assyrians were finally defeated and gone because of the Maccabees relit the flame of the holy lamp. You've all heard this story. And the lamp was the sign of God's presence right there in the wreckage of the temple. Though there was only 1 day's supply of sanctified oil, miraculously, the lamp that they lit burned for 8 days. Maybe we could say that both stories contain the same message, that God is still with us no matter what happens. Or, another way to say that goodness can prevail in the world over cruelty and evil and violence. The story of the candle in the darkness is perhaps a bit of a corrective to the older legend, because the Maccabees did arm themselves with violence and weapons and hatred, whereas the rabbi's students learn that shouting and fighting cannot win, not really win, not for good. Deep change comes through some illumination, some new hope, new ideas, new life, not just beating up the old ones. It is actually not hard to find parallels between the Hanukkah stories and those of Christmas. So we'll think about those for a minute too. Both festivals celebrate the light that faith and love bring into the darkness of the world. Both echo the even more ancient pagan celebrations that notice the darkness and celebrate it as the beginning of the return of the light. And the point of all these stories is to encourage a rededication year after year after year to compassion and love and joy. After I'd been preaching on Advent and Christmas and Hanukkah and solstice for all these years. It's been a lot of years, folks. And the good thing about that is that I sometimes find a way to kind of sit back and say, well, what am I missing here? What have I not talked about? What have I not noticed? And it occurred to me a little bit ago that one of the things that we don't notice when we're telling these heroic stories of the Nativity or of Hanukkah or even of the solstice, we don't notice and put in the story very much about what came before the miracle. It's happening to us now, here in Advent. Before there was the miracle of the holy flame in the temple, there were years, long years of pain and the confusion and fear of war. Months and months and years of struggle against a large, powerful, well-organized army that had, one imagines, enough food and weapons and maybe even fancy uniforms, while the Maccabees were hiding out, hungry and cold in the darkness of the hills. And then there's the Christmas story. We tell this part, but we don't really think about that before the happy ending with the shepherds and the wise men were the days and the weeks of Mary and Joseph's, first of all, trying to figure out what to do. And then their long and difficult, and one can only begin to imagine, fabulously uncomfortable trip to Bethlehem. And then the strange, cold darkness of the stable and the animals and the unexpected visitors. So the stories tell us. Before the light and all around us, all around the light, there is darkness. Before Christmas and solstice and the turning of the earth back toward warmth and light, there is Advent. Even as a child, I was drawn to the season of Advent, those last 4 weeks before Christmas, the weeks of waiting and expectation as the dark and the cold deepen in our northern parts of the earth. I grew up in Rochester, New York, so we knew snow. We light candles and we string colorful lights to illuminate our dark houses and streets to get ready for what's coming. And when I was little, I knew Advent was important because of what comes at the end of it, that last window on the Advent calendar, and opening my eyes to the magic of Christmas morning. But now, a long time later in my life, it is Advent itself that I welcome. The work of preparation is not just something to endure and to do, not always very well. You know, that close your eyes, hold your breath, just keep going, we'll get there soon. As a parent, as a minister, as a person, I have learned that the preparation and how we do it is as important as any celebration itself. and probably more so. Religion keeps reminding us, all religions in their own different ways, keep reminding us that this journey of life is not all lived in the sunshine or on the tops of mountain peaks in glory and accomplishment and contentment. That is not the way it works, even for those of us who are good. All of us have times, too, in the valleys of despair and grief and loneliness. Times when it is so dark we can't clearly see even where we've been, much less where we're going or why. There are lessons in this darkness, of course, lessons of faith, certainly, and insight, and especially compassion for oneself and for others. We know that, but it's hard sometimes to remember. Have you ever found yourself in what seemed like total darkness? So dark that you wait for your eyes to adjust and it seems like maybe they can't? It's hard in those moments not to panic, not to give in to the disorientation. Sometimes, if we can stay still, we can slowly and gradually notice that we can hear or feel or smell what's around us. It was there all the time, of course. And until it was dark, we didn't know it. And even the deepest darkness contains bits of light. The moments, the hours, the weeks, the months of confusion, of depression, times when we try again and still can't find a way through or even a way to understand. An unexpected illness or infirmity, a job lost, a relationship broken, a horrible mistake. A misunderstanding with someone you thought you knew well. This stuff torments us, often in secret, sometimes blowing up. We're all around us. Such disasters may contain seeds of something new and precious. Something you were longing for, even maybe without any conscious awareness that you were longing for anything. Here's the point. The way we meet the challenges, the large and small disasters, the confusing lost times in our own lives, the losses of our neighbors and our families, the way we meet those, it is actually up to us. We can try to race by, turn on more lights, rev the engines, let's get out of the dark, or at least keep beating it with a stick. We get cultural points in our time when we keep moving ahead or in any direction at all. And we get, my dad used to call them demerits, for standing still and waiting, which is sometimes what we need most. I will not review for you the psychological or social costs of speeding through life. You know those already. I will say that racing through the darkness exacts a terrible toll on our souls. And that's a price I wish we were not so willing to pay. Starving ourselves spiritually, we are cut off from our own inner light, cut off from one another, cut off from joy, from a sense of oneness with everything and everyone. When we don't allow ourselves to stay in the dark or the silence, when we don't take the time and space to stop and notice that we and people near and far and the world is so beautiful and so much in need of our attention and our care. When we don't take that time and space, we really are in the dark, no matter how many lights we turn on. So, this is the religious message of Advent, to wait, to prepare. It is hard to know, right here, right now, how we could reasonably be waiting for anything good. There are too many days when the world seems to have lost its mind, lost its decency. And this is the world we live in. This beautiful world we live in. The world we are charged to see and understand as it is and believe, have faith that it can be even more beautiful, more wise, more just, more loving. That faith and the action it moves us toward is the work that we are called to do all our lives. And we know how to do it. We know how to notice the beauty, the tenderness, the courage that's also all around us, all mixed in with the devastation. We know how to notice these good things and how to point them out to one another. We know their power to bring light into darkness in the world and in our own darknesses as well. We know how to do this because it's what people do, what people have always done. Our Advent message: the world is dark and we are in it, and there is goodness. Goodness in us and in our communities, not for us to keep, but to spend, to give away to the world. So let us wait with anticipation and intention and faith, preparing that which is best in us to become manifest in the world. So may it be. So may it blessed be. Let us sing one more time. It's number 55 in your books, Dark of Winter. Please be seated. Will you say the words for extinguishing our chalice with me? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Our benediction: candles and fire and star, these are the symbols of this most blessed season. Candles for the banishing of darkness, fires to draw out hearts and spread a golden glow to the innermost recesses of our being, stars to beckon us onward, guiding our footsteps to the holy. Amen, and go in peace.